The transport ship arrived at Station Theta 9 just after midnight. Doyen Kim stood at the viewing window and watched the station grow larger against the darkness of space. Behind him, the dying star cast a dim red glow across everything. The station looked old and tired, just like everyone said it would. Doyen carried only 2 bags. One held his clothes and personal items. The other held his cooking tools. The military had told him to leave the cooking tools behind. They said the station had everything he needed, but Doyen kept them anyway. His grandmother's knife, his father's old pot, the wooden spoon his sister had given him before she died. Some things were too important to leave behind. The station was bigger than he expected. Over 40,000 refugees lived here now. Most of them were children. The war had taken their parents, their homes, their worlds. Now they lived in this cold metal station floating in space, waiting for a future that might never come. A woman met him at the docking bay. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. She introduced herself as Dr. Nari Choi, the chief medical officer. "Welcome to the orphanage," she said. Her voice was flat, empty of emotion. "I hope you can help us. Nothing else has worked." Doyen followed her through the station. The halls were clean but felt dead. No one talked. No one laughed. The few people they passed moved like ghosts, silent and sad. Dr. Nari explained the problem as they walked. "The Relathi cubs are dying," she said. "Not from disease. Not from injury. They just refuse to eat. We have tried everything. The coalition sent their best nutritionists. The food is perfect. It has all the vitamins, proteins, and minerals they need, but they will not touch it." They reached the dining hall. It was a large room with rows of metal tables and chairs. At one table sat 4 small creatures covered in fur. They had large eyes, pointed ears, and long tails. The Relathi cubs. They stared at the food trays in front of them but did not eat. The oldest one had dark blue fur with white markings. That was Voss. Next to him sat a smaller cub with silver blue fur and bright amber eyes. Tika. The 2 smallest ones with pale gray fur huddled together. Pip and Neil, the twins. All 4 looked thin and weak. "How long since they ate?" Doyen asked. 3 days for the twins. 5 for Tika and Voss. If they do not eat soon. Dr. Nari did not finish the sentence. Doyen studied the food on their trays. Brown blocks of protein, green paste of vegetables, yellow cubes of grains. Everything measured perfectly. Everything scientifically correct. Everything completely wrong. He had seen food like this before. In the military, in emergency stations, food designed by computers and made by machines. Food that kept you alive but gave you no reason to live. "I need to see the kitchen," Doyen said. Dr. Nari took him to a sterile white room filled with machines, automatic cookers, nutrient mixers, temperature controllers. Everything was clean and efficient and soulless. Doyen opened his bag and took out his cooking tools. Dr. Nari watched him with confusion. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Making lunch," he said simply. He found rice in the storage room. Real rice, not the processed kind. He found fish, vegetables, and spices. He ignored the machines and used his own hands. He washed the rice 3 times, feeling the grains between his fingers. He heated oil in his father's old pot until it shimmered. He added garlic and ginger, filling the kitchen with warm smells. Dr. Nari watched him work. "This is not efficient," she said. "The machines can do this faster." "Fast is not always better," Doyen replied. He placed the fish in the hot oil. It sizzled and popped. The smell filled the air, rich and alive. He made a simple meal. Steamed rice, grilled fish with crispy skin, stir-fried vegetables with sesame oil, a small dish of kimchi he had brought from Earth. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated. Just real food made with real hands. He carried his plate to the dining hall. The 4 cubs were still there, still staring at their untouched trays. Doyen sat at a table nearby. He did not look at them. He did not speak to them. He simply began to eat. The rice was perfect. Each grain separate and fluffy. The fish was crispy outside and tender inside. The vegetables were bright and fresh. He ate slowly, savoring each bite. Movement caught his eye. Tika had lifted her head. Her nose twitched. Her ears turned toward him. She stood up slowly, her tail low and uncertain. She took 1 step toward his table. Then another. A security officer rushed over. Lieutenant Hayuk Bey, according to his name badge. No, he said firmly. The cubs must stay at their assigned tables. Health protocols, but Doyen held up his hand. Wait, he said quietly. Let her come. Tika moved closer. Her body was tense, ready to run. She reminded Doyen of a stray dog he had once fed, hungry and desperate but afraid to trust. He kept eating, pretending not to notice her. She reached his table. Her eyes were fixed on his plate. Her whole body trembled. Doyen looked away, giving her space. He picked up a piece of fish with his chopsticks and took a bite. Tika moved like lightning. Her small hand darted out and snatched a piece of fish from his plate. She stuffed it in her mouth before anyone could stop her. Lieutenant Hayek started forward. Stop, that food has not been tested for her species. It could be poisonous. Dr. Nari pulled out a medical scanner, her hands shaking. But Doyen kept watching Tika. He saw the moment the food hit her tongue. Her eyes went wide. Her ears shot up. She chewed slowly, carefully, like she was tasting something precious. Then she swallowed, and she made a sound, a soft chirping noise that came from deep in her chest. Dr. Nari gasped. That is a contentment sound. Rilathi make that sound when they are happy. I have never heard it from these cubs. Tika looked at Doyen, then at his plate, then back at him. Her tail began to wag slowly. The other 3 cubs appeared from under their table. They had been hiding there the whole time. Voss came first, protective and cautious, then the twins holding hands. All of them stared at the food on Doyen's plate. Dr. Nari was reading her scanner frantically. Her vital signs are improving. Blood sugar rising, stress hormones decreasing. This is impossible. Lieutenant Hugh looked between the cubs and Doyen. We cannot allow this. There are protocols, dietary restrictions. If something goes wrong, Doyen made a decision. He pushed his plate onto the floor and stepped back. All 4 cubs rushed forward. They ate together, sharing the food, making soft, chirping sounds. The dining hall filled with those happy noises. Other staff members came running. They shouted warnings. They quoted regulations. But Doyen just stood there, watching the cubs eat real food for the first time in months. Dr. Nari kept scanning them, all 4 showing improvement. I do not understand. The coalition food has the same nutrients. Why does this work when that does not? Doyen watched Tika lick the last bits of rice from the plate. She looked up at him with those big amber eyes. For the first time since he arrived, he saw hope. Sometimes, he said quietly, the science needs to catch up to what works. These cubs do not need perfect nutrition. They need food that tastes like love. Food that reminds them of home. Lieutenant Hayek shook his head. This will cause problems. Big problems. The coalition will not approve. Then let them complain, Doyen said. But these cubs are eating, and right now that is all that matters. Tika came closer to him. She reached out one small paw and touched his hand. It was the first time she had touched anyone since arriving at the station. Doyen knelt down to her level. More? She asked in broken universal. Her voice was tiny and hopeful. Doyen smiled. Yes, he promised. More tomorrow, and the day after, and every day after that. Dr. Nari looked at her scanner one more time. Then she looked at the cubs, all 4 of them gathered around Doyen. She made a decision. I will request permission for a controlled experiment, she said. You can continue feeding them. But I must monitor everything. We need to understand why this works. That night, Doyen lay in his small quarters and thought about his sister. She had loved to cook. She had taught him that food was more than fuel. It was memory. It was comfort. It was love made visible. He had failed to save her. But maybe, just maybe, he could save these 4 small cubs who had lost everything. Maybe that was why he had come to this cold station at the edge of space. Maybe this was his second chance. Outside his window, the dying star cast its red light across the darkness. But inside the station, 4 small hearts beat a little stronger. 4 small bodies grew a little warmer, and 4 small voices chirped softly in their sleep, dreaming of tomorrow's meal. 3 days passed. Doyen cooked for the cubs every morning and every evening. Simple food, rice, fish, vegetables, soup with real broth. Nothing from the machines. Everything made by hand. The cubs ate everything. Their fur grew shinier. Their eyes grew brighter. They started playing again, chasing each other through the corridors. The staff watched in amazement. After months of silence and sadness, the Rilathi cubs were finally alive. But Dr. Nari was confused. Every night she studied her data. The human food and the coalition food had the same nutrients, same proteins, Same vitamins, same minerals. On paper, they were identical. But in reality, one worked and one did not. She found Doyen in the kitchen one morning. He was stirring a large jar of vegetables in salt water. The jar sat in warm sunlight from the viewing window. "What is that?" she asked. "Kimchi," Doyen said. "Korean fermented vegetables. My grandmother taught me to make it. It takes time. You cannot rush it." Dr. Nari wrinkled her nose at the strong smell. "Is it safe? Those vegetables are rotting." "Not rotting. Fermenting. There is a difference. Good bacteria eat the sugars. They create new flavors, new nutrients, things that do not exist in fresh vegetables." He offered her a small taste. She hesitated, then tried it. Her eyes widened. The flavor was complex, salty, sour, spicy, alive. "I have been thinking," Dr. Nari said slowly. "The coalition food is sterilized, perfect, clean, no bacteria, no germs, but maybe that is the problem." Doyen nodded. "Life needs life. Dead food keeps you alive. Living food makes you thrive." That morning, Doyen gave the cubs a new dish, miso soup, rich brown broth made from fermented soybeans. The smell filled the dining hall. Earthy, deep, complex. All 4 cubs stopped what they were doing. Their noses lifted. Their tails went straight up. They rushed to the table, but Tika did something strange. She dipped her paw in the soup and just held it there. She closed her eyes. Her whole body trembled. Then she began to cry. Soft whimpering sounds. Doyen knelt beside her. "What is wrong?" he asked gently. Tika touched her nose to the soup again. "Mama," she whispered. "Smells like Mama." Dr. Nari rushed over with her translator device. She spoke to Tika in slow, careful universal. "Tell me about your mother's cooking." Tika struggled with the words. Her universal was not good, but slowly, piece by piece, she explained. Rilathi food was not quick. It took time, months, sometimes years. They grew things in the ground. They let them age. They mixed them together and waited. The food changed. It became something new, something better. "My mother had jars," Tika said. "Big jars. Older than me. Older than my grandmother. Food from long ago. She would take a little bit and add it to new food. She said it was family. She said the old food taught the new food how to be good." Dr. Nari recorded everything. That night, she searched the Rilathi cultural database. What she found changed everything. The Rilathi were master fermenters. Their entire culture was built around it. They aged foods for generations. They passed down starter cultures like family treasures. A mother would give her daughter bacteria that came from her grandmother, who got it from her grandmother going back hundreds of years. The Rilathi digestive system had evolved to need these bacteria. Without them, they could eat and still slowly starve. The nutrients were there, but their bodies could not use them properly. The coalition food was nutritionally perfect, but it was also completely dead, sterile, empty of the microscopic life that Rilathi needed to survive. Dr. Nari showed her research to Lieutenant Hayuk. He read it carefully, then shook his head. "This is bad," he said. "The coalition spent millions developing those rations. They will not admit they were wrong, and if you are right about the Rilathi, how many other species have the same problem? At least 17 species use fermented foods in their traditional diets," Dr. Nari said quietly. "Maybe more. We have 40,000 refugees here. How many of them are dying slowly because we are feeding them perfect dead food?" The next morning, Tika followed Doyen everywhere. She watched him cook with intense focus. When he chopped vegetables, she studied his hand movements. When he stirred the pot, she watched how he moved the spoon. She was learning. Doyen took her to the hydroponics bay where he kept a small garden. He showed her the plants growing in the warm, humid air. Tika moved through the rows, sniffing each plant carefully. Then she stopped. She dug her paws into the soil around a thick-rooted plant. She pulled it up gently and brought it to her nose. She smelled it for a long time. Then she looked at Doyen with tears in her eyes. "This one," she said. "This is the right one." "I can make mother culture." Doyen did not know what that meant, but he gave her a jar and watched as she worked. She cleaned the root carefully. She cut it into pieces. She mixed it with water and a little salt. She sealed the jar and put it in a warm place. "Now we wait," she said. "The good bacteria will grow. In a few weeks I will have mother culture. Then I can make real Rilathi food." Dr. Nari was amazed. Tika was only 6 years old. She had lost her parents when she was 4. She had not cooked anything since then. but the knowledge was still inside her, passed down through generations, living in her instincts. That afternoon, everything changed. A coalition transport ship arrived. Commander Velthus stepped out, flanked by 2 armed guards. He was an insectoid, tall and thin, with hard shell-like skin and multifaceted eyes. He did not look happy. Lieutenant Hayek met him at the docking bay. Commander Velthus did not waste time with greetings. "I received a report," he said coldly. "You are allowing refugees to eat unregulated food. Food that has not been tested. Food that could be dangerous. This is a severe violation of Coalition health protocols." "The cubs were dying on Coalition rations," Lieutenant Hayek said. "Now they are healthy. We have data showing remarkable improvement. Data means nothing without proper testing and approval. Where is this human who started this?" They found Doyen in the kitchen. He was teaching Tika how to make rice properly. The other 3 cubs watched, their tails swishing with interest. Commander Velthus looked at the scene with disgust. "This stops now," he announced. "The cubs will return to standard rations immediately. You will be taken into custody for questioning." Tika stepped between Commander Velthus and Doyen. She was so small compared to the tall insectoid, but she did not back down. "No," she said. Her voice was tiny but firm. "He is teaching me. He is helping me remember. Child, you do not understand. The Coalition provides the best nutrition science can create. This primitive cooking is inefficient and potentially harmful." Dr. Nari stepped forward. "Commander, I have research that explains why the cubs need this food. The Relathi require living fermented foods to maintain their gut microbiome. Coalition rations are too sterile. They lack the necessary bacterial cultures." Commander Velthus clicked his mandibles dismissively. "I have heard this theory. It is romantic nonsense. There is no scientific basis for it." "I have the scientific basis right here," Dr. Nari said, holding up her datapad. "Documented improvement in every measurable health marker. Before and after comparisons. This is not theory. This is proof." Commander Velthus did not even look at the data. "You have 48 hours to return these cubs to proper nutrition. If you refuse, this station will face severe sanctions. The human will be court-martialed. And you, doctor, will lose your medical license." He turned to leave, but Tika ran after him. She held up her jar of mother culture, the one she had started just that morning. "This is my family," she said. "In this jar. My mother taught my grandmother. My grandmother taught my mother. My mother tried to teach me. But the war came. Everyone died. The food died. Everything died." She held the jar closer to Commander Velthus. "Now it is growing again. Because he helped me. Because he gave me real food. If you take this away, my family dies forever. Do you understand? Forever." For a moment, Commander Velthus stood very still. His mandibles moved slightly. Then he turned away. 48 hours, he repeated. Then he was gone. That night, Tika slept with her jar held tight against her chest. The mother culture grew slowly in the darkness. Inside it, billions of bacteria multiplied. The same bacteria her ancestors had carried for thousands of years. Almost lost. But not quite. Not yet. Doyen stood at his window looking at the dying star. 48 hours. 2 days to prove that some things mattered more than efficiency. 2 days to save not just 4 small lives, but an entire culture. He thought about his sister again. She used to say that cooking was a form of time travel. Every recipe carried the past into the future. Every meal was a message from those who came before. 2 days. He would make them count. Dr. Nari did not sleep that night. She sat in her office searching through old databases. Most Relathi records were lost when their homeworld fell to the Vakran invasion, but some files remained scattered across Coalition servers. Forgotten. Ignored. She found a research paper buried in an old archive. It was written 80 years ago by a Relathi scientist named Dr. Kithra. The title was simple: Living Food for Living Bodies. The Coalition had marked it as rejected. Not scientific enough, they said. Too focused on culture, not enough on nutrition. But Dr. Nari read it anyway, and what she found made her hands shake. Dr. Kithra had discovered something remarkable. The Relathi shared an evolutionary pattern with humans. Both species came from worlds rich in diverse bacteria. Both developed complex digestive systems that relied on these bacteria. Both created food cultures based on fermentation. It was not coincidence. It was parallel evolution. There was more. Before the war, Relathi chefs had traveled to Earth. They studied human fermentation techniques. They found that human fermented foods worked for Relathi bodies almost as well as their own traditional foods. The bacteria were different, but the principle was the same. Life feeding life. Dr. Nari found photographs in the files. Relathi and humans cooking together, sharing recipes, laughing. That was before the coalition standardized everything, before efficiency became more important than culture. Then she found something that made her cry. A video file dated just days before the Relathi homeworld fell. It was encrypted, but Dr. Nari broke the code. The video was a message, a desperate attempt to preserve something precious. An elderly Relathi woman sat in a kitchen. Jars lined the shelves behind her. Hundreds of them. Some looked ancient. "My name is Grandmother Veska," the woman said. "I am recording this for any Relathi cubs who survive. The enemy is coming. We cannot stop them. Most of us will die, but maybe some will live, and if you live, you must remember." She held up a jar. "This is mother culture. It is older than me, older than my grandmother. We have kept it alive for 3,000 years. Every generation feeds it. Every generation learns from it. It is not just food. It is memory. It is family. It is who we are." The old woman looked directly at the camera. "Without this, you can survive. But you will not be Relathi anymore. You will forget the songs we sang while stirring the pots. You will forget the stories we told while waiting for the ferment. You will forget us. And we will truly be gone." Dr. Nari checked the file metadata. The woman's full name was Veska Tikaris. She looked up the Cubs registration file. Tika Veska Tikaris. The old woman in the video was Tika's grandmother. Dr. Nari ran to find Doyun. It was 3 in the morning, but this could not wait. She found him already awake, cooking breakfast for the cubs. "You need to see this," she said. They woke Tika gently. The small cub was confused and sleepy. But when Dr. Nari played the video, Tika became very still. The old woman spoke. Tika watched with wide eyes. Tears ran down her furry cheeks. When the video ended, she did not move. She just stared at the screen. "Grandmother," she whispered finally. "I remember her. She was teaching me to cook. We were making mother culture together." Then the sirens came. Everyone was screaming, running. I got separated. I never saw her again. Tika looked at her own jar of mother culture. She saved this message for me, for us. She wanted us to remember. Doyun put his hand on her small shoulder. "Then we will remember, together." Morning came. They had less than 48 hours left. Lieutenant Hyuk called an emergency meeting. Station command was panicking. Commander Veltis had sent official complaints to Coalition headquarters. They were threatening to shut down the entire station if the feeding program did not stop. But something unexpected happened. Other refugees had heard about the Relathi cubs. They had seen the cubs playing, laughing, being alive. Word spread through the station. That afternoon, a Thranak's mother came to the kitchen. The Thranaks were crystalline beings, their bodies made of living glass. She carried a small container. "This is how my people make food," she said. "We grow special fungi in crystal caves. It takes 50 years. My mother gave me this culture before our world fell. I have kept it hidden. I thought it was useless here. But maybe it is not." More refugees came. A Coltrane father brought seeds for water plants that needed months to mature properly. A Dravine elder brought spice mixes that her grandmother had taught her to make. Every species had traditional foods. Foods that took time. Foods that carried memory. And every species had been given coalition rations instead. Efficient. Perfect. Dead. Lieutenant Hyuk watched the refugees gather. He pulled Dr. Nari aside. "This is bigger than 4 cubs," he said quietly. "If we stop now, all these people lose hope. But if we continue, the coalition will destroy us. Then what do we do?" Dr. Nari asked. Lieutenant Hyuk looked at the refugees, at the hope in their eyes, at the jars and seeds and precious cultures they carried. He made a decision. "We fight," he said. "Not with weapons, with food. We show them that this matters. That culture matters. That memory matters. And we make them choose, efficiency or humanity." Tika stood on a chair in the middle of the crowd. She held up her jar of mother culture. "My grandmother said this is family," she announced in her small voice. "She said we must keep it alive. I will share mine with everyone. We can all help each other remember." One by one, the refugees came forward. They shared their cultures, their seeds, their recipes, The dining hall transformed into a living archive, a museum of memories, a library of flavors that the Coalition had tried to erase. But that evening, station sensors detected something troubling. A Coalition enforcement ship was approaching. It would arrive in 12 hours. Commander Veltis had not waited the full 48 hours. He was coming early. The station director, Isil Kwan, finally emerged from her office. She had been away at Coalition meetings for weeks. Now she stood in the dining hall looking at the gathered refugees, at the jars and seeds, at the 4 small Relathi cubs teaching other children how to start ferments. "Explain this to me," she said to Lieutenant Hayek. He told her everything. The dying cubs, the human food, the research, the grandmother's message, the refugees reclaiming their heritage. By the time he finished, Director Kwan's expression had changed. "I have been to 15 refugee stations in the past month," she said slowly. "Every single one has the same problems: depression, illness, failure to thrive. The Coalition says it is trauma. They say time will heal it. But what if it is not trauma? What if it is this?" She looked at Dr. Nari. "You have data?" "Comprehensive data," Dr. Nari confirmed. "Health improvements across every measurable category: physical, mental, social. The difference is undeniable." Director Kwan pulled up files on her datapad. She worked quickly, her fingers flying across the screen. Then she smiled. "There is an old provision in the Coalition Charter," she said, "from before the standardization. It allows for cultural preservation zones during refugee crises. It has not been used in 50 years. Everyone forgot it existed, but it is still law." Lieutenant Hyuk stared at her. "You are going to invoke it?" "I am going to try, but Commander Veltis will fight it, and if we lose, everyone involved will face serious consequences. Are you all willing to take that risk?" Doyen looked at the 4 cubs. At Tika holding her grandmother's legacy in a simple glass jar. At Voss protecting his siblings. At the twins finally starting to play again. At all the refugees who had found a spark of hope for the first time in years. "Yes," he said. "We are willing." Dr. Nari nodded. Lieutenant Hyuk straightened his uniform. One by one, the other staff members stepped forward. They would stand together. Tika climbed down from her chair and walked to Director Kwan. She held up the jar of mother culture. "This is 3,000 years old," she said. "My people kept it alive through wars, through disasters, through everything. We cannot let it die now, not when we just found it again." Director Kwan knelt down to Tika's level. She looked at the jar for a long moment. Then she looked at the small cub who held it. "Then we will not let it die," she promised. "I do not know if we can win, but I promise you this: we will fight." That night the station prepared. Not for battle, but for something harder. They prepared to stand for something the Coalition had forgotten. The right to remember. The right to culture. The right to be more than just efficiently alive. Doyen cooked one more meal. He made it with extra care: rice, fish, vegetables, simple food, but made with love, made with memory, made with the understanding that some things could not be measured or optimized. The 4 cubs ate together. They chirped their happy sounds. And in the morning, the Coalition ship would arrive. Everything would change. But tonight they had this moment, this meal, this proof that being alive was more than just breathing. Outside, the stars turned slowly. And on a small table in a warm kitchen, a jar of mother culture grew stronger. 3,000 years of history almost lost, but not yet. Not tonight. The Coalition enforcement ship docked at exactly 800 hours. Commander Veltis stepped out with 12 armed officers. His mandibles clicked with irritation. He had expected compliance. Instead, he found the entire station waiting for him in the main hall. Over 500 refugees stood together. Adults held children. The elderly stood beside the young. 17 different species, all united. In the front row stood 4 small Relathi cubs. Tika held her jar of mother culture like a shield. Director Kwan stepped forward. "Commander Veltis, welcome back to Station Theta 9. I must inform you that this station is now operating as an official cultural preservation zone under Coalition Charter Section 7, Article 12. Commander Veltis' antennae twitched. "That provision has not been used in decades. It requires approval from Coalition High Command." "It requires notification, not approval," Director Kwan corrected. "The charter is very clear. In refugee situations where cultural loss poses a threat to mental and physical health, Station directors have emergency authority to establish preservation zones. I filed the paperwork this morning. This is bureaucratic manipulation, Commander Veltis said coldly. You are using an outdated law to justify dangerous practices. These refugees are eating unregulated food that could harm them. Dr. Nari held up her datapad. I have comprehensive health data showing the opposite. Every refugee participating in the traditional food program shows improved health markers. Physical fitness up by 43%. Mental health scores improved by 67%. We are not harming them. We are healing them. Commander Veltis did not look at the data. Numbers can be manipulated. I need to see the situation for myself. I want to inspect your kitchen facilities immediately. Lieutenant Hayek led him to the kitchen. What Commander Veltis saw made him stop. The sterile white room was gone. Now the kitchen was alive with activity. Refugees from different species worked side by side. They chopped vegetables. They stirred pots. They tended fermentation jars. The air was thick with the smells of dozens of different cuisines. A Threnax elder was teaching a human teenager how to grow crystal fungi. A Coltran father was showing a Dravine mother his water garden techniques. Tika moved between them all, helping, learning, sharing her mother culture. This is chaos, Commander Veltis said. This is inefficient. This is not how a proper nutrition program operates. Doyen was at the stove, teaching a group of young refugees how to make soup. He turned to face Commander Veltis. You are right, Doyen said. This is not efficient. Cooking like this takes time, takes effort, takes care. But that is the point. Life is not supposed to be efficient. Life is supposed to be lived. Philosophical nonsense, Commander Veltis snapped. I am here to enforce coalition standards. Not to debate poetry, Tika stepped forward. She looked up at the tall insectoid commander. She was so small compared to him, but her voice was steady. What was your family's food? She asked. Commander Veltis went very still. His mandibles stopped moving. For a long moment he said nothing. That is not relevant, he said finally. It is relevant, Tika insisted. You are Velkari. I learned about your species in school. You make honey bread, special bread that takes weeks to ferment. Your parents make it for their larvae. It is how you show love. Commander Veltis' antennae drooped. I have not had honey bread since I was a larva. 60 years ago. My homeworld is gone. The recipes are lost, are they? Tika asked. She gestured to the busy kitchen. Look around. These people remember. They are sharing. Maybe someone here knows how to make honey bread. Maybe someone can help you remember. For the first time, Commander Veltis looked uncertain. He looked at the refugees working together, at the jars of cultures growing on the shelves, at the faces filled with purpose and hope. Then his expression hardened again. This is irrelevant. My personal feelings do not matter. I have orders. The coalition has spent billions developing optimal nutrition. I cannot allow sentiment to override science. Dr. Nari stepped forward. Then let us talk about science. Real science. I have data from this station and 15 others. Refugees on coalition rations show chronic malnutrition despite adequate caloric intake. They show microbiome collapse. Their bodies are starving for bacterial diversity that sterile food cannot provide. She pulled up charts on her datapad. Look at these numbers. Mental health deterioration, immune system failure, digestive problems, all supposedly caused by trauma. But they all improve dramatically when refugees return to their traditional food practices. This is not sentiment. This is biology. Commander Veltis looked at the data, really looked at it. His mandibles moved slowly, processing what he saw. These patterns appear across multiple species, he said slowly. If this is accurate, it means the coalition food program is failing on a massive scale. Yes, Dr. Nari said. That is exactly what it means. We created the most efficient nutrition system possible, and in doing so, we destroyed something essential. We forgot that food is more than fuel. It is culture. It is memory. It is life itself. Commander Veltis looked around the kitchen again. An elderly Dravine woman was teaching young cubs how to grind spices. A Threnax child was carefully monitoring crystal growth. Everywhere, knowledge was being passed down, preserved, kept alive. He turned back to Director Quan. If I allow this to continue, High Command will question my judgment. They will say I have gone soft, that I prioritize feelings over efficiency. Then let them question, Director Quan said. Show them the data. Show them the results. Make them choose between being right and doing right. Commander Veltis was silent for a long time. His officers looked at him, waiting for orders. The entire kitchen had gone quiet. Everyone was watching. Finally, he spoke. I need to see more. I want to observe the feeding program for 3 days. I want to interview the refugees. I want comprehensive medical data, and then I will make my recommendation to High Command. It was not approval, but it was not rejection either. It was a chance. For 3 days, Commander Veltis watched. He saw cubs who had been silent begin to sing while they cooked. He saw elders who had been waiting to die suddenly teaching the next generation. He saw refugees from enemy species working side by side, united by their shared love of real food. On the evening of the 3rd day, Tika found him sitting alone in the observation deck. He was staring out at the dying star. She climbed up onto the bench beside him. She held something wrapped in cloth. I made this for you, she said. She unwrapped the cloth, revealing a small piece of bread. It was golden brown and smelled of honey and thyme. Commander Veltis stared at it. How did you? I asked the elders. A Velkari grandmother lives in Sector 7. She remembered the recipe.
She helped me make it.
It took 3 days to ferment properly. I hope it tastes right. Commander Veltis took the bread with shaking hands. He brought it to his mandibles and took a small bite. He chewed slowly. And then he made a sound that Tika had never heard from a Velkari before. A deep, resonant hum, the sound of joy mixed with sorrow, as I remember from my childhood. I thought I would never taste this again. He looked at the small Rilathi cub. Why did you do this for me? I came here to shut down your program, to take away your food. Because you lost your home too, Tika said simply. Because you forgot what it tastes like to be alive. Because everyone deserves to remember. Commander Veltis finished the bread in silence. When he was done, he sat for a long time not speaking. Finally, he turned to Tika. I need to tell you something, he said. When I volunteered to lead this inspection, it was not to shut down your program. It was to document it, to prove it works. Because I have been visiting refugee stations for months, and everywhere I go I see the same thing. Pia not living. Bodies healthy but spirits dying. He stood up. I'm going to recommend that the coalition overhaul the entire refugee nutrition program. It will be difficult. Many will resist. But the data is undeniable. And now, thanks to you, I understand why it matters. The next morning, Commander Veltis called a station-wide meeting. Every refugee who could walk came to the main hall. His officers stood at attention. I came here expecting to find violations, he announced. Instead, I found something that should have been obvious all along. Food is not just nutrition. It is identity. It is heritage. It is what makes us who we are. He looked directly at the 4 Rilati cubs. These children taught me that lesson. They refused to accept efficiency at the cost of their souls. They fought for the right to remember, and they were right to fight. I am authorizing Station Theta 9 to continue and expand its cultural food preservation program. Furthermore, I am recommending that this model be implemented across all refugee stations in coalition space. This will not be easy. It will not be quick. But it is necessary. The hall erupted in cheers. Refugees embraced each other. Cubs danced. Even Commander Veltis's stern officers looked relieved. But Commander Veltis held up one hand. There is one condition. You must document everything. Every recipe, every technique, every success and failure. This knowledge must be preserved and shared. Can you do that? Doyen stepped forward. We can. We will. That evening, they held a celebration. Every species prepared their most important traditional dish. The dining hall was transformed. Colors, smells, sounds, life, Yiltur. 3,000 years old. 6 months passed. Station Theta 9 no longer looked like a place where people waited to die. It looked like a place where people lived. The dining hall operated 24 hours a day now. Different species cooked at different times, filling the air with an endless symphony of smells. Thrinax crystal fungi glowed softly in their growth chambers. Coltrane water gardens bubbled in specially designed pools. Dravine spice gardens grew in the hydroponics bay. And everywhere jars of fermenting foods lined the shelves, each one carrying memories from lost worlds. Tika had grown. Not just in size, though she was taller now. She had grown in confidence, in purpose. Every morning, she taught cooking classes to refugee children. Every evening, she worked on her mother culture, feeding it, tending it, keeping 3,000 years of history alive. Voss had discovered a talent for organization. He kept records of every recipe, every technique, every cultural practice they recovered. His database was growing into something remarkable. A library of flavors, a museum of memories. The twins, Pip and Neil, had become ambassadors. They moved between different species, learning languages, sharing food, building bridges. They were too young to remember much of the war, but they were old enough to help build peace. Dr. Nari had published her research. It spread through the coalition like fire. Other medical officers contacted her daily, asking for advice, sharing their own data. The evidence was undeniable. Across hundreds of refugee stations, populations on traditional foods were thriving while those on standard rations continued to struggle. Lieutenant Hugh had been promoted to regional coordinator. Now he traveled between stations, helping them establish their own cultural preservation programs. He was not a cook. He was not a scientist. But he had learned that sometimes the most important thing a leader could do was stand between the rules and what was right. But the real change was in the refugees themselves. People who had been hollow and empty now had light in their eyes. They laughed, they sang, they taught their children the old ways. They remembered who they were. One morning, Doyen received a message. The Coalition Council wanted to meet with him. They were planning a massive celebration, a feast of remembrance to honor the new food preservation initiative. Every refugee station would participate. Every species would share their most important traditional dish. Station Theta 9 would host the main event. 5,000 guests were expected. Representatives from every coalition world. Journalists, scientists, politicians. The galaxy would be watching. Tika was nervous. What if we fail? She asked Doyen. What if our food is not good enough? What if we cannot show them why this matters? Doyen knelt down to her level. We will not fail, because we are not trying to impress them. We are just sharing what we know. Sharing our memories, sharing ourselves. That is all food ever needs to be. The preparation took weeks. Every refugee who could cook volunteered. The station transformed into a massive kitchen. Elderly Threenax taught young Coltrane about crystal growth. Dravine spice masters shared secrets with Relathi fermentation experts. Species that had fought wars against each other worked side by side, united by their love of real food. Tika decided to prepare the mother's legacy, the traditional Relathi feast dish her grandmother had mentioned in the video. It required 3 months of careful fermentation. She had started it the day Commander Veltus approved their program. Now it was ready. The day of the feast arrived. The main hall was decorated with banners from 17 different cultures. Tables were laden with foods from across the galaxy. The air was thick with smells both familiar and strange, beautiful and complex, alive. Commander Veltus arrived early. He had changed since his first visit. He smiled more, moved with less rigidity. He had started keeping a small culture of honey bread starter in his quarters. Every week he baked bread and shared it with the Velkari refugees who lived in other sectors. The council representatives arrived in formal attire, looking important and skeptical. They had approved the program, but many still believed it was inefficient. A waste of resources. They expected to see chaos, disorder, proof that tradition could not compete with modern science. Instead, they saw something that made them stop and stare. They saw refugees from 17 species working together in perfect harmony. They saw children laughing as they learned to cook from elders. They saw families forming across species barriers. They saw hope, real tangible hope. The feast began. Each species presented their most important dish and told its story. A Threenax mother explained how crystal fungi took 100 years to grow, with each generation tending it for the next. A Coltrane father showed his water garden, 40 generations of knowledge in a single pool. A Dravine elder shared spice bread that used recipes from before the coalition even existed. Finally, it was time for the Relathi presentation. Tika walked to the center of the hall. She looked so small under the bright lights. Voss, Pip, and Neil stood beside her for support. She carried a large bowl filled with her mother's legacy. Her voice was quiet at first. "This is my family," she said. "All of my family. Going back 3,000 years. My mother, my grandmother, my great-great-great-grandmother, all of them are in this bowl." She held up the bowl. "When the war came, I lost everyone. My mother, my father, my home, Everything. I thought I lost this too. I thought my family was gone forever. She looked at Doyen, standing at the edge of the crowd. Then a human showed me something. He showed me that family is not just the people you see. It is the food they taught you to make, the recipes they gave you, the love they cooked with. It lives in every jar of ferment, every pot of soup. Every meal we share, she began to serve the mother's legacy. First to Commander Veltis, then to the council representatives, then to everyone in the hall. The smell filled the space, rich, complex, ancient and new at the same time. The eldest council member, a ancient Dravine, tasted it slowly. Tears ran down his face. I have not tasted anything like this in 60 years, he said. Since before we modernized, before we made everything efficient. I had forgotten food could taste like this, could make you feel like this. Around the hall, others were having the same reaction. They were not just eating food. They were eating memories, stories, love made visible. They were remembering what it meant to be alive. One by one, the council members stood. The eldest spoke for all of them. We came here to evaluate a program, he said, to see if it was worth the cost, worth the inefficiency. But we have learned something today. Some us who we are, and we almost lost them forever. He looked at Tika. This small cub taught us that lesson. She refused to accept survival at the cost of her soul. She fought for the right to remember, and in doing so, she reminded us all of what we had forgotten. The Council hereby authorizes the complete restructuring of refugee nutrition programs across all Coalition space. Every station will establish cultural preservation kitchens. Every species will have the right to their traditional foods. This is not optional. This is essential. The hall erupted in celebration. Cubs danced. Elders embraced. Even the stern council members were smiling, but Tika did not celebrate. She walked through the crowd until she found quiet satisfaction. She took his hand. Thank you, she said simply. Doyen knelt down and hugged her. No, thank you. You taught me something I had forgotten. My sister used to tell me that cooking is love made visible, but you showed me it is more than that. Cooking is memory made tangible. It is culture made edible. It is the past feeding the future. Later that night, after the guests had left and the celebration had ended, Doyen stood in the kitchen. It was quiet now. Just him and the soft bubbling of fermentation jars. Tika found him there. She could not sleep. She was holding her jar of mother culture. What are you thinking about? She asked. My sister, Doyen said. She taught me to cook. She told me that every meal is a gift, a way to say I love you without words. I wish she could see this. See what her lessons became. Tika climbed up onto a stool beside him. She can see it, she said confidently. My grandmother told me that the dead live in the food we make. Every time we cook their recipes, they are with us. Your sister is here. In every meal you make, in every person you teach, Doyen smiled. It was the first real smile he had managed since his sister died. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best, Tika said. She held up her jar. Want to help me feed the mother culture? It is time for its weekly feeding. You are supposed to sing to it while you stir. I do not know any Rilathi songs, Doyen said. Then sing a human song. The bacteria do not care what language. They just want to know they are loved. So Doyen sang. Old Korean lullaby his grandmother used to sing while she cooked. And Tika stirred the mother culture, keeping 3,000 years of history alive with a simple wooden spoon. Outside the kitchen window, the dying star cast its red light. But inside, life was growing. In jars, in gardens, in the hearts of refugees who had learned to hope again. The Coalition would change its policies. Other stations would follow their example. Millions of refugees across the galaxy would rediscover their heritage through food. It would take years, decades. But it would happen, because 4 small cubs had refused to accept survival at the cost of their souls, because a human cook had, and